Hello, students. Today we will start our new chapter, chapter 9 in history Life in the Villages and Towns. We have already learned how the kingdoms were growing and how they were being administrated. Concentration of people in certain important places began to grow as these places offered more opportunities of employment and livelihood than traditional farming and related activities. So, in this chapter, we shall have a look as to how the villages grew into towns and how they were administrated. The second, urbanization. Modern empire saw the growth of many towns, the progress in agriculture on one side and the growth of science on the other was bringing about a social change. Large numbers of jobs were getting created to meet the administrative needs. The rulers required able people to run the administration and form large armies. The period of 400 BCE is also known as the second urbanization, the first being the Indus Valley civilization. As more and more written and physical evidence is available of times closer to the present day, it is easier to understand how and what caused this urbanization. As you already read in previous chapter, the Mauryan Empire spread over nearly the whole of the Indian subcontinent in under the able leadership of Chandragupta, Bindusara and Ashoka. This was the time when many towns became important. The growth of towns can be grouped under three heads: the political centers, the religious centers, and the trade centers. Growth of agriculture. However, this does not mean that all the villages were turning into towns. Agriculture had its own importance and productive was improving because of the use of new tools and techniques. The condition of the roads and tracks as well as means of transportation were also improving, and this helped people living in the villages to transport their produce to the town. The villages. The discovery of iron and understanding its usage was one of the most important development of the era. It helps people to produce new and stronger tools like axes for felling trees to clear large areas for cultivation, digging tools to dig wells and canals for irrigation. The people living in the villages were also governed by the king, just like those living in the towns. However, there are some differences not only between the towns and villages but also between the villages of the northern areas and the southern areas. Villages administration in northern region. In the northern region, the landowners was known as Grahapati. Those who did not own land were known as Daksha Karamkara. As the word suggests in Hindi, it means that they were considered servants or slaves. The person who had the highest land ownership was known as the village headman and was called the Gram Bhojka. He also the person responsible for collecting revenue on the behalf of the ruler. In the villages of the south, the cultivators were known as three different names: Velalar, the large landowners; Uzhavar, the small landowners; Kadasai and Adimai, the landless workers. Land management. The ownership of land was divided. There was some land which were private and these were properly marked. People were not allowed to occupy vacant pieces of land just on their own will. Other occupations. In addition to the farmers and the workers, there were many other occupations which had started in the villages. These were potter, carpenters, the weavers, the blacksmith, the cobblers, etc. The basic of necessities and requirement of the people of the villages were usually met within the village. The iron tool excavated and dated to this period show that the art of smelting iron ore and producing high quality iron was prevalent. Development of trade. The increased use of currency coins was another development was facilitated trade. Many punch marked coins are found by archaeologists from this period. Goods was in the form of barter where goods were exchanged as payment. But using currency was a new development. Salaries were mostly paid in the form of grain, but at some places the uses of currency had started. The urban development. The urban scenes was also changing fast. The introduction of tools and increase of farm productions of left many people without any work in the village. Such people took on the other occupations. The places of living were getting congested within the walls of the town or fortifications. The farming and agriculture area were beyond the walled area. The towns are generally classified into the three groups: religious towns, capital towns, and trading centers. Religious towns. Many towns started growing because they were pilgrimage places for people of various faiths. Bodh Gaya, Mathura, Varanasi, or Ujjain are some such examples of religious towns. Capital towns. People living here, including the royal families, ministers, soldiers, administrative staff, the craft person, and traders. The agriculturists tended to live in the outskirts and their fields were closer. Trading centers. Trading centers were the other areas of concentration of the large population and growth of the town. These were such centers which facilitated move across rivers and provided many roads in the different directions. In the southern region, trade with some foreign countries also had begun over sea routes. Govern. The ruler, along with his ministers, used to rule the kingdom through governors. The basic policies were made by the king in consultation with his ministers. Revenue collection. Taxes or revenue was collected from all people working in different occupations. They appoint spies to keep a watch on the activities of the revenue collectors so that they do not take any part of the revenue collected. Water sources. Most of the towns were still close to the major sources of water like rivers and lakes. Wells were digged in different form and canals laid out to arrange water for the population. Roads and tracks. The kings used to spend money on roads and tracks. This helped them move their armies to different places as per requirement. Religion. Besides the Hindu religion, other religions such as Jainism, Buddhism had also gained prominence. All had their own following, but they lived in harmony. Progress in trade. The growth of population and knowledge of weaving led to many people adopting the art of weaving. This work was taken on even by women at home while men were at work in the field. Traders and craftspersons formed associations which were called shrenis. The shrenis of craftspersons produced raw material and distribute the finished product. They also carried out training of new craftspersons. The shrenis of merchants and traders sold the goods in the market. They invested the money and issued loan. There was an overall development in and around the period of the 4th and 3rd century BCE. The period saw smooth administration and prosperity in the region. Thank you, students.